welcome to Your World Tonight on Wion. I'm Aisha Sindhu. We're unpacking some of the day's big impact stories on the show today. The first one deals with a business debacle that's developing in India, but whose import extends much further. In a development that will spell further trouble for Tata Sons and its chairman Ratan Tata, two investment companies of the Shapoorji Pallonji Group have, in a legal petition, directly linked Tata Sons and Ratan Tata with the rupees 22 crore fraudulent transaction in Air Asia India and links with an alleged sanctioned global terrorist as well.
The Tata mystery row is getting murkier every single day as lots of dirty linen is now being washed in public. The developments are damaging the reputation of both Cyrus Mistry and Tata Sons. Two investment companies of the Shapoorji Pallonji Group, Cyrus Investments and Sterling Investment, have now in a legal petition directly linked Tata Sons and Ratan Tata for the 22 crore rupee fraudulent transactions. The transactions have allegedly been carried out in the conglomerate's joint venture airline Air Asia India. The petition, filed with the National Company Law Tribunal, has also accused that, as part of the transactions, Tata Sons had dealings with Hamid Reza Malikodapour, an alleged sanctioned global terrorist. On both allegations, they've cited the report by Deloitte, which conducted a forensic investigation on Air Asia India. Tata Sons, however, has called the allegations referred to in the petition against Tata and Tata Sons completely baseless. Tata Sons says Air Asia India has already put in the public domain that there is an ongoing investigation against certain former personnel of Air Asia India involving irregular personal expense claims and certain company charges. Tata Sons also says a private complaint has been filed with the Bangalore police against certain allegedly erring officials in Air Asia India. Tata Sons' former chairman Cyrus Mistry, after resigning from Tata board companies last week, made it clear that he has plans to escalate the battle with the Tatas. His combined with the new allegations will spell further trouble for Tata Sons and its interim chairman, Ratan Tata. Bureau Report, Wion.
Brand consultant Harish Bijur joins us right now from Bangalore to talk about how this is going to have an impact perhaps on the brand image of the Tata Sons Group as well. Mr. Bijur, thanks so much for joining us. Do you think that it is unfortunate, of course, what's happening with dirty laundry being washed out in public view? Has council not sort of thought about brand image, you think, when these two factors or factions are fighting it out in full public glare?
Yes, I think it's most certainly unfortunate that dirty linen is being washed in public because, corporate matters are best kept corporate. And there are rules, there are laws, there are regulations, and there are statutory bodies which actually govern all of this. So when stuff like this comes out in public eye, I think, sometimes the most minor issues also tend to get blown out of proportion. And you will see a fair bit of it happening as the other side competes with the Tata Sons management and the board and keeps bringing stuff out time and again. Not good for brand image for sure, but I guess these are boardroom battles.
Right. In your experience as a brand consultant yourself, what sort of impact do you see this having on the 150-year-old brand that Tata Sons is? Is it going to be long-term damage? Do you think they're going to be able to bounce back? What's your perspective?
Well, my personal point of view is that, brand Tata has certainly been stirred, but I don't think it's shaken at all. Because if you really look at the lineage of the brand Tata, it is much deeper than many of us tend to understand it to be. Tata is, a prime word which is used in the land. It represents doyens with the name Tata. It represents trust. It represents a great degree of equanimity in Indian business environment, by and large. So I think, it's very difficult to shake this kind of equity. To an extent, the brand is in the stratosphere. And I personally do believe that this will be seen to be a boardroom battle which has gone nasty. And over a period of time, things will settle down. But, till then, the Tatas will be in the limelight, possibly a piece of limelight that nobody wants to be in.
Right, Harish, also, like you're mentioning, the import of the brand value of the Tata Sons Group it's been writ large, in India and now much beyond as well. For other companies that are watching what's going on, what do you think is a factor, what they should learn really from what's happened here in this boardroom battle? Is it time for a consultant of your, standing as well, like a brand consultant, to join into boardroom discussions to ensure that brand value isn't attacked during these scuffles?
Sadly, this is quite like an act of God. Nobody can avoid this kind of a brand boardroom tussle wherein, things come out from each end. But overall, when you look at the image management and brand management issues that tend to govern corporate organizations, I think the learning is to say that, hey, listen, try not to wash dirty linen in public, because it benefits no one. This kind of an issue does not benefit either Tata Sons or Cyrus Mistry and his team. So to an extent, decorum has gone out of the window, and a lot of slush is out there.
Do you think that all of this could have been avoided if more open conversations had been carried out earlier?
I do believe everybody in hindsight has got perfect vision, and I think all of us are going to use hindsight and say that, hey guys, this could have been dealt with better. But what happens typically in a boardroom normally remains in a boardroom. This is an abnormal situation because, it's not that these kind of issues have not come to the fore in the past. It's not correct to say that, promoter management have not asked CEOs and chairmen to leave and have worked out lovely packages. It has happened in the past, but nobody gets to know of it. In this instance, I think, everything got blown out of proportion. Maybe it should not have been gotten out of so much of proportion. And in hindsight, all of us say, maybe this should not have happened. But then what do you use of hindsight? I mean, things have happened, the horse has bolted, and everything is out there.
All right, hindsight is a luxury that permits us to do a little nitpicking after everything's happened. Harish Bijur, thanks so much for joining us here on Wion with your perspectives on that developing story. We appreciate your time. Let's move on to another one of our big stories tonight. There's no such thing as a free lunch, we all know that, but some airlines have begun taking revenue generation's mantra to extremes. Take a listen.
Airlines the world over are leaving no stone unturned to monetize products and services one had taken for granted over the years. They're coming up with new innovative ideas, some bordering on the bizarre, to make money, and some Indian airline companies have since jumped on the extra fee bandwagon. If a family of 3 wants to fly together, then it better pay a surcharge. It is similar to what United Airlines does. United, which is one of the world's largest carriers, insists that passengers will be automatically allocated a seat on the day of departure, meaning passengers on the same ticket could be forced to sit apart. This has been in vogue in India for some time now, but recently, some airlines have increased the seat selection fee to raise the ancillary revenue from non-ticket sources. Air India, for instance, charges more than $130 from a family of 3 on board a flight from, say, Mumbai to London if they want to sit together. Jet Airways will charge more than $65 for the same. The seat selection fee came after India's aviation regulator put a cap on baggage fees and cancellation fees this year. A foreign airline plans to charge passengers extra for the use of overhead lockers. Wait, there's more. In 2014, Venezuela levied a breathing tax of about $15 per passenger flying out of Caracas to cover the cost of a newly installed air purification system. Samoa Air became the first airline to levy a fat tax, charging passengers according to how heavy they are. Norwegian or JetBlue charge $5 for use of a blanket. A pillow on JetBlue comes for an extra $6. So the next time you fly with family or friends, expect the unexpected. Maybe a toilet user fee. Bureau Report, Wion.
Quite a tongue-in-cheek way to end that report. But indeed, is that what all of this is going to come to? I'm just going to run you through some of the figures that we came up with, or facts really, from that report, and reiterate some of the most almost ridiculous sounding fees that passengers are being asked to pay for what are being termed outside of regular fare luxuries, if you would want to call the use of a blanket a luxury on an extremely cold flight. Well, if you're flying Norwegian or JetBlue, you're going to be charged $5 for using one of those. Meanwhile, a pillow on JetBlue comes for an extra $6. In 2014, as our report was pointing out, Venezuela levied a breathing tax of about 15 USD per passenger flying out of Caracas to cover the cost of a newly installed air purification system. And India isn't too far behind either, charging more than $130. That's the national carrier Air India for a family of 3 to board a flight from, let's say, Mumbai to London. So it is this, added benefit really that's being provided to or really under the guise of an added benefit that's being provided to passengers, saying if you want to sit with your family, you're going to have to cough up more cash. Now, why is this happening, especially keeping in mind what took place in India's aviation sector? The regulator put a cap on baggage fees and cancellation fees just this year. You can see that this perhaps has pinched airline companies, and they are coming up with new and innovative and, for lack of a better word, what seems like a ridiculous kinds of fees for the passenger to bear. Let's talk to Vijay Mathur, the former chairman and CEO of Airport Authority, for more on that story. Mr. Mathur, thanks for joining us on Wion on this discussion. Let's start with you weighing in on this sit next to your family tax that's being proposed.
I think this whole issue of pricing of airline tickets needs to be now integrated into a more transparent system. You know, it started out with special seating charges, then extra baggage. You know, you can't take any baggage on, or you can pay for every extra baggage. I think the real thing is for the airlines to come together and work at a common, integrated and transparent package. You know, this is all what you might say charging by stealth. So it's much better that, and the airlines will probably argue that if we don't do this, we'll increase the price of the ticket. Now, the issue is that this must be transparent. This sort of addition of cost by stealth is not really fair to the passenger.
Okay, so you're saying that airlines need to sit together and come up with a more transparent way of ticket pricing. But with competition so fierce in this sector, do you really perceive that to happen, or is our government's going to have to step in and demand that private airline carriers sit together and figure out a better way of charging passengers?
Well, take a practical view. Given the degree of competition, and I can only see it intensifying, it's not something that's very easy for the airlines to do. On the flip side, bringing the government in at every particular aspect of pricing and licensing and everything else is not a healthy trend. I think we have to find a via media. One via media could be a regulator. We could have a regulator look at it, take an independent view, and then the airlines must agree to the discipline of accepting whatever he hands down. I think passing it on to the government is a little simplistic, and in the long term, I don't think it's a very healthy thing. At the other end, the airlines also need to accept and admit that their whole system of pricing does need some commonalization and transparency and integration. So even the airlines need to understand going forward. In the short term, I agree, they're doing what they're doing. But in the long term, for the benefit of growth of civil aviation, this is something that they must impose upon themselves.
All right, fair points there. One quick last question for you, Mr. Mathur. You're saying that you only see the competition between private airlines intensifying in the years going forward. do you see more bizarre taxes and fees coming the passengers' way, keeping that in mind?
You know, it's all of this is linked to so many other things. It's linked to creation of infrastructure. It's linked to how disposable incomes proceed in the future. It's linked to the affordability of air travel compared to the cost of oil. So there are a lot of imponderables, and it would be a guessing game. But that said, we still need to recognize that the airlines need to sit down and accept some common discipline. You know, they can't just treat this as the wild and woolly west and try and kill every newcomer with the competition or do whatever. They need to sit down and get some ground rules which they share with the passenger associations.
Okay, Mr. Vijay Mathur, pointing out some possible solutions to this debacle that passengers are having to face. Thank you so much for joining us here on Wion with your inputs on that story. We are going to take a quick break on that note, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the GST and what sort of impact it's going to have on the end consumer. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back. You're watching Your World Tonight here on Wion. Thanks for staying with us. Now for the latest development on the GST rollout. The Finance Minister Arun Jaitley will be making a final attempt to resolve the long pending battle between the control of the GST regime between India's state and central governments. The centre's bid will be made between today and tomorrow in a meeting of the GST Council, which will be attended by the Union Finance Minister and the state finance ministers. Few of the states like Kerala and West Bengal have been up in arms against the demonetization move, saying it has negatively impacted state finances. They hold that the GST implementation must be delayed to avoid a double whammy to the state's finances. At the heart of the issue is that the state governments have around 3 lakh employees and the centre another 50,000 employees who could lose their jobs if there is an exclusive control given either to the state or the central government. It is yet to be seen if the state and central governments come to a consensus on the dual control issue. A political resolve becomes inevitable, keeping that situation in mind. All right, Wion Mishra, founder Consumer Online Foundation, joins us right now to talk more about the GST. Thanks, Mr. Mishra, for speaking with us on Wion. So the GST was supposed to be a single window. Clearly, that's not happening with the 4-bracket system, with the highest tax slab now at 28%. How do you see these factors impacting the end consumer?
You see, unfortunately, in our country, consumer comes last. Nobody bothers about the consumer. It's always a tough war between the center and the state. And everybody in the political system wants to have a control at the cost of the consumer. See, we felt that the GST was going to help the consumer to ensure that we're going to have a level playing field in terms of taxation, and we're going to have affordable products and services at the marketplace. And that is why we aligned with the government to encourage government to get into GST regime, because we wanted that while, several studies have revealed that when you make the taxation policies friendly, you collect more money. But unfortunately, the political executives don't seem to understand that, or maybe, whoever is, are under control in the taxation issues, whether it's the finance minister officials and others, they always try to play by the galleries by, misleading the citizens.
Right.
GST is a completely consumer-friendly initiative, and we were very hopeful that it would have got rolled out soon. Now they're talking about unemployment, they're talking about all kinds of issues which are not relevant, because you see, the manpower is always available. It's a human resource which can be used to the people's country's advantage. Manpower is never lost. Manpower has to be utilized effectively and efficiently to make the country grow. And
Right.
it is never, the unemployment comes in when the government loses focus in terms of development.
Okay,
in terms
but
of
what do you make of the state's contention that the double whammy of demonetization and GST is going to have a huge impact on state finances? What do you say to that contention?
No, I don't agree, because I feel that when you make taxation policies friendly, when you make it very rational, then your taxation, mobilization becomes much efficient and better. You see, now what is happening is there is a huge erosion, there is huge evasion of taxes. The taxes which the consumers are paying actually are not reaching the exchequer because it is not very well monitored and it is not well controlled. So, because various states have various taxation, lot of, cross-state smuggling is going on, tax evasions is going on, the documentation is not digitized. You don't come to know actually, how much products are being manufactured in the state and which are the categories. So there are a lot of dichotomy in terms of, the work which needs to be done by the finance ministry of the state. And I don't understand, they all want shortcut money. They just want that they increase taxes on the consumer, they burden the consumer, they collect the money, but whether it reaches them or not, they're not bothered.
Right.
Whether,
Right. Also, I just wanted to check with you. You're saying that the GST is consumer friendly, but we're seeing this logjam between the state and centre taking place on the dual control issue. Do you see that, this is going to cause massive delays to the rollout of the GST? When do you think it's actually going to be able to bring benefit to the end consumer?
well, that's a gambling. That's a big question. I really don't know. Because I can't forecast. But what I can tell you is the intent of the central government is good. The central government wants to roll out. They're serious. They want to ensure that all the states align with them. But again, there is politics which comes in, which is very bad, which is not healthy, which is not in favor of the consumer. Politics should be kept away when you talk about consumer protection, when you talk about development. You have to ensure that, this concept, which is world over, which is in all developed countries where we find that, you have single window taxation policy so that there is no discrimination. And all the products are sold at the similar price in a manner that the consumer is able to access and make it affordable. And that's the challenge. That is what we want to bring into India. If India has to see itself as a developed country. And unfortunately the states, they make it very political. We shouldn't try to bring politics in every subject. And we must ensure that politics is kept much far away from these kind of healthy initiatives that are coming in the interest of development and the growth of the country.
Okay, keeping politics out of most things for people's benefit might be wishful thinking, Mr. Mishra, but can't help but agree with you. But thanks so much for joining us here on Your World Tonight on Wion. We really appreciate you joining us with those perspectives on the GST. We are going to have to wrap up the show on that note. We've completely run out of time, but thanks for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow as well with the day's top stories and some great discussions. See you then.